friends, thanks for joining me. We are going to be creating this layout today for Crafty Vixens using the spring kit. And this layout's all about those frames, so that's the kind of technique we will be exploring today. And the kit is simply stunning. The kit contains all these stickers and chipboard pieces and die cuts. That's just beautiful. So we'll be certainly be using some of those on our class today. But because it's my first one, I kind of like to go frugal to make sure that we can do all 6 classes. And I came up with the idea of making some frames for us to use on our page. I thought it'd be quite fun. So the first job we'll do is actually make our own background paper as well. So it's just lovely to be able to have papers that coordinate exactly with your layout. And as you can see here, I've used some distress ink. You could use oxide ink or normal distress ink. And I'm just going to use it as a watercolour. Now you could actually use watercolours too, so whatever you've got, don't be too fussy. And all I'm doing is I'm going to lay down some of that colour onto some white cardstock. So I included some in the kit, but you might want to have a little practice first just to get the effect that you want. So you could go very light like I'm doing here, where you can see the brush strokes. I think in my original one, I made it more bold, more solid, so I just added more ink, or maybe diluted it a bit less. Now, I think I could have done with a slightly bigger brush here because obviously the smaller the brush, the more brush lines you'll get. So if you've got a very large, broad, flat brush, you'll get a nice even stroke. So I think it's a really good idea if you've got some scrap card just to have a practice and get the effect that you want. Now you'll need to set that aside to dry. You could use more than one colour on a sheet, or do what I've done here is just fill the whole sheet with the same colour. Up to you. So you will only probably need half a sheet for this project, so you can definitely keep that for other things if you wish. So to actually make the frames, I've cut my frames to size. The sizes are in the instructions, but this will help guide you to filling in or doodling the borders. So again, you might want to practice on a scrap bit of paper. It doesn't have to be the coloured one, but just to get your hand moving and relaxed. I think you'll definitely get a better effect if your hand is relaxed. And I think this was I didn't actually use this specific piece on my page. I think I just made this one as the example. So, but you can doodle all sorts of things. So you can see here I'm doing some curly bits, some swashes. To begin with, you might want to just do some scallops because that's kind of the easy one, or just lines. But it would be really good for you to have a go because I think once you've learned how to do this, you'll have a lot of fun doing it on other projects as well, or creating little frames to embellish a layout. So once you've got your design, you just want to fussy cut the edges. So I do like it being curly and swishy. Is that the word? Don't know what the word is. Just because I think it adds, a little bit of something to your page. And we're just going to take a knife and then I've not even used a ruler, look. I'm just going to cut out the centre there. Because I want that hand-drawn look, so the fact that it isn't perfectly straight. And you can see I've done exactly the same thing on black cardstock. So again, cut it to size, because that's really what's going to help you, give you that what's the word I'm looking for? So it will really help guide you to, create straighter edges. So if you did it on a really big piece of paper, you've got no guidance, and therefore I think you'll just go all over the place. Well, I would certainly. So I've used a white gel pen there, or a paint pen. It is a Uniball pen that I've got. I got mine at Paper Chase. And I think we need to be quick because probably Paper Chase isn't going to be around for too much longer here in the UK. But if you've got a white pen of any description, that's what you'll need for it to pop off the black paper. And again, I'm not too fussy. I think because, you have to do that rectangle. It's good if you've got a little dot in the middle, so you know where the halfway point is, and then you're aiming for that dot. So you can see there, I've kind of made a little circle type thing. Just remember if you're using the white pen, that you'll need to allow some time for it to dry. So don't go over the top of it because they do take longer to dry, and therefore you'll smudge it if you're too quick. So just be mindful of that. But again, just have a practice. So just show you there really, the world's your oyster in terms of creating these little frames. I think you'll need 4 frames altogether. So I think I've created a small frame at the top there. Just checking my notes. So I've been to sleep since I've created the layout and the instructions. So 1, 2, 3, and then we've got that tiniest frame there, that's number 4. And I've got a small black frame at the bottom too. So the organisation of this layout is quite simple really. So we'll use the frames then to draw attention to our photo. Mine's a 3x4 photo, which is my favourite size, but you could adapt this easily to have a 4x6, a landscape photo or multiple photos. I do try and make layouts that can be easily adapted to suit your topic and your photo sizes. So I'm just demonstrating here again, if you want to cut out your frame. I think I'll be using this one at the bottom, and I end up cutting it in half. So I kind of like the frame I created. So I'll be using mine by cutting it down. But equally then the other half I can use elsewhere, so which is great. So I just wanted to trim the inside of mine a little bit because it's quite a heavy frame. Looks, it's quite broad compared to my original one. So I don't want, because it's black, it's really going to attract the eye. So I kind of set that aside to just decide whether I'm going to use it, or as I say, in fact, I just cut mine down very slightly. Now, just to ground everything, you can see I'm using exactly the same technique as I did before, and I'm just having a little swash of colour across the top of my page there. So, while you've got your ink out, you could go ahead and do that just to ground the border at the very top. And this bit's optional, but if you want to, and you've got a little stamp, some sort of background stamp, you can add a little bit here and there. So you don't want something too defined, it's just a bit of texture. And I've just used the same colour, so I think I'm using peacock feathers. So I've used peacock feathers to stamp with as well. So this kit is very floral, it's got a lot of pink, but what I really like about it is there's quite a bit of black in there as well, which is really bold and lovely. So I'm going to be using a bit of that polka dot there, or the 2 polka dots together. And because it was our first layout, and Julie and I don't scrap together, we have to kind of do it apart. So we kind of have to be mindful as to who's using what, and can we use this? And so I tend to go really light with my first layout, and this is my first one. And then my embellishments and papers get more and more as I get towards the end, knowing what we've got left. So that's kind of my logic behind it. So this was my first class. So you can see there are lots and lots of die cuts in the pack, and it's just a case of picking some out for this layout. I had it in my mind that I would use these frames to highlight things, or just to bring attention to elements and cluster things, which is what I like to do. So as if I haven't got enough, I'm now looking at what I can fussy cut out of papers, because really, who needs 100 die cuts and stickers? No, I don't have enough. I definitely need to fussy cut some more. So I have matted my photo onto this kind of it's like a straw colour paper, and I've created some little banners and just used the manufacturer's strips, which tend to get thrown away anyway. So whatever manufacturer's strips you can find, you can use those to create these little banners. Again, it's kind of one of the things I like to do a lot of. Just really love it. And we're going to use that frame then just to bring that pop of colour to the top. And I've taken those, what are those sizes? 2x2 elements. I'm going to fussy cut one of the little sentiments out there. Again, if you fancy a different sentiment, or just a different way of doing things, you go ahead. This is really kind of the start point for you rather than the end point. But the thing that we're doing really is we're using that border to add some embellishments. So by clustering them around a border, it kind of makes it easy on the eye that, you could go nuts on that border and just fill it up with decorations and elements, and it wouldn't look too busy because it's all kind of grounded against that border. So don't feel that this is all you can do just because that's all I've done. As I say, probably in the normal world, if I wasn't doing a class, I'd probably go nuts as well. Right, so I've fussy cut the good days from that 2x2 paper as well. And I also cut out one of the little birds in the nest, and I'm using a die cut butterfly, so that's what I'll be putting in that frame there. And my apologies that the bottom of the layout is missing from the frame. I really must remember to look up when I actually record things. I kind of think I've positioned the camera, I've left it in place, the table hasn't moved, and everything should be in frame, but clearly that's not true. So I was just marking off the bits and pieces that Julie's used there, so I know not to use those. So, yes, your guess is as good as mine as what we're doing now. Note to self, look at the camera. So, okay, so we are just going to mount that little butterfly onto some foam tape. And I've curled the wings slightly so they pop off the page. If you want to, you can add a little black distress ink around the edges of that, the good days, as I've done. And I'm just going to highlight or frame those with a little black pen as well. Up to you though, so don't feel obliged. But I like the way, because it's white on white, it was a good way to make that pop off the page a bit. So just choose some flowers. I've gone pink. There are lots of blues and creams and yellows. So go ahead and just choose some random flowers. Or do something else if you wish. Don't feel obliged. So I kind of wanted a bit more journaling, but just couldn't decide what am I going to do. So I think this is where I had the idea to add one of those frames, my test frames, to the bottom. And just while I think about it, I'm going to stick down those flowers. So I kind of need to think about a lot of things a lot. I'm not the quickest of scrappers by any stretch of the imagination, so I tend to go forwards and backwards and so on. All right, so I'm actually going to make another frame to go at the bottom. So the two extra ones you saw are the, I should use those another time. But, really just, have a go with this technique. I think you really enjoy it once you've got the hang of it. And as I say, it will be something you probably use again and again. Because you've now got, you can create frames in any colour because you've done the colour washing. You can use just normal cardstock as I've done here. And you can really customise them. And they're just a lot of fun to do. So at least I've managed to get the layout in frame now. So hopefully you can actually see what's going on at the bottom. So again, I'm just fussy cutting out that frame to finish it off. And it's a great way then just to, again, ground off your little elements to the page rather than having them floating about. So I love a bit of fussy cutting, but if it's not for you, there are plenty of stickers and butterflies and die cuts and so on. Just use one of those. I am a fussy cutter. I just love fussy cutting, so don't feel obliged again. So for whatever reason, I think Julie might have used that Pure Beauty, so I've just used one of the other stickers. But again, just use whichever sticker you want. So they're all interchangeable. Don't think you've got to copy, precisely. So I am just going to layer up the last bits and pieces. We're nearly there. So I've used some of the chipboard, and I think that's a die cut there to finish off. Sorry, I forgot to mention that I just noticed I'd stitched my border with black thread. But again, if sewing isn't your thing, or you don't have access to a sewing machine, you could do some hand stitching if you want to for a little bit of detail. You can certainly finish them off with a staple at the ends. I think it's just changing the textures as you create something. Having those little tiny details, I think, really help to bring your layout to life. So I'm just going to add some of those perspective hearts that you get in your kit here and there. And I'm going to use some of the Nouveau drops, which are also in your kit. And just going to pop those around the page. I think it's a good idea to do it in clusters, so again, you're not having things floating around willy-nilly. And just be sure to do this at the very end. Now, mine were a little bit old because I'd used a colour from my stash. It was a bit old, and then they tend not to go nice and round, so hence the pin. But now that we've had the new one for the kit, I found it came out beautiful, and you don't need to poke it about with a pin. Again, if you've not used Nouveau drops before, just have a little practice somewhere on some scrap paper, because there is kind of a little, art to it, so be sure to do that. I'll leave you with the close-ups from the class. I hope you've enjoyed this class. I know I certainly did. And I can't wait to see your versions of the frames and so on the group. If you've got any questions, please get in touch. Contact us on our Facebook group, or you can message me or email me. That would be great. And I'll see you in the next class. Take care. Bye.